Good afternoon, Xbox Nation. Welcome to this week's new episode of the Xbox Factor Podcast. I'm your host, Mr. BoomStick XL. And ladies and gentlemen, we have one hell of a show packed with topics. And of course, the main event, the main course, the turkey dinner that everyone has been talking about is, well, what's on Phil Dominus Maximus Aurelius's shelf? Well, it turns out that it has been confirmed by numerous sources within the industry that it is a prototype of the streaming box that is coming. We've been hearing about this for weeks and months, and it is it's a real thing. Obviously, we're going to break down exactly what this means. And Phil Spencer, man, he really knows how to make news. That dude. I mean, all he did was strategically say, hey, it's the 25th anniversary of Fallout. They sent us these Pip-Boys, which looked awesome. And it's funny, immediately people didn't even care. People could care a flying hootenanny about the bobblehead that you find in game in all of your Fallouts. No, they immediately start running and checking spaces on his shelf. And well, there are a couple of things on there that had a lot of people excited that may or may mean something, may mean nothing at this point, but we have other topics. We have Redfall potentially releasing in the first quarter, which I think is going to be a big game, a much bigger game than many people are making it out to be. I think that it is going to be one of Arcane's best. I think that there's a lot to get excited about, especially in the co-op, and the fact that it has been tailored to, folks like myself who enjoy a nice single-player experience. You're not going to get cheated out one way or the other. Now, I want to talk about some Starfield, folks. That game is going to be big. I mean, really big. And we got some a former developer who left Starfield or left Bethesda to open up his own studio. We got that interview. And Jez Corden, I don't know if you know that guy. He's a writer for Windows Central, and he also is one half of the Xbox 2 podcast. Well, he said something on Friday that got me very excited because, like many in this podcast, many in the chat right now, people are wanting and have been asking and calling for a dedicated Xbox handheld. I'm definitely one of them. And we got something similar, but the price really didn't match what you were getting. And of course, I'm talking about the Logitech G streaming box that comes out. I believe it's actually this week, as a matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken. And it looks great, and a lot of people are using it. But the fact that it's only cloud-based and there's no onboard storage, is it worth the $300? Well, here's the thing. I originally had it pre-ordered, and then I canceled it because right now, Mrs. Boom and I are saving for a much bigger place, and that takes a precedent over the handheld. But I also tried to get it to review it for the channel, and so far, no dice, because again, this is still a very small channel. So maybe at some point, Logitech will take a look at Double Barrel Gaming, and they're like, yeah, okay, now he's big enough or not to review pieces of hardware, because that's a $300 device. So it would, they want to go to people that have a big following. It makes sense, but you just never know. And that's going to be the show. But we have a lot to get into. Let's welcome in now. The panel right now is a little small. We're waiting for Boxenberger to show up, and we might get a surprise guest at the back end. But Daniel McGee, brother, how are you feeling? And welcome.
I'm doing really good. I finally got caught back up on House of the Dragon last night.
Nice.
So, no spoilers, but if you had told me one of the coolest things in that show would be an old man walking across the room, I would have not believed you. But good episode.
Ridiculously great episode.
It's funny. My wife and I, believe it or not, as big as Lord of the Rings fans we are, we never sat down and watched House of the Dragon, or it's not its sequels, but it's my God, why can't I think of the series?
Game of Thrones.
Yeah, we watched the first episode and a half, and we just were never taken by it. So yes, publicly admitting, Game of Thrones not for me and Mrs. Boom. We are movie and show buffs. But I'm glad you're enjoying it, brother. That's good. I'm glad that they still have the magic for that series, and obviously I've heard a lot of good things about this. Would you say that you need to watch Game of Thrones to appreciate this?
No, not at all. I mean, there's a couple of things that like you might have slightly more appreciation for if you watch Game of Thrones first, but
Okay.
like it's a prequel. It's not like, oh, there's Ned Stark, he's here. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, I mean the only negative I have about House of the Dragon and pretty much all of the shows that are going right now is that they're really cutting into my game time.
Oh, well, there you go. There you go. Yeah, I haven't had a lot of chance to game. I'm addicted to Proteus.
Mm.
One of my favorite games of the year so far. Honestly, it's if you like Doom, if you like Quake, and you like incredible soundtracks, that if you're into metal, it's phenomenal. It's just one of the biggest surprises of the year, to be honest with you. But Infinite Umbra, what's going on, brother? How the heck have you been, man? I know you guys are setting up for a big show this Friday.
Yeah, we are. We are. I've been all right, Boom. Just playing a lot of games with the buddies. Uh, we've really been getting grounded still, so I haven't really focused on playing on anything else really for the most part. But like Danny, I have been watching the Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon and more other shows, so it's kind of taking me away from watching or playing what I usually play. But we got so many other games. I think I'm at that point where I have to go back and just get through some of my backlog. So
Yeah.
I'm going back to Unity because that was the last Assassin's Creed I stopped at. So I have to finish Unity and I can move forward finally and get with the rest of the world. And but because I hear Odyssey is a masterpiece supposedly. So
I have 40 days in Odyssey, brother.
Oh wow.
Yeah. 40 days, and that's no BS. Go to my go check out my I think I have every achievement but 2.
Wow.
It is one of my favorite Assassin's Creeds of all time. It is absolutely, without a doubt, a masterpiece.
Would you say it's the best for you in the whole series, or what?
Yeah, number one in the entire series. For me, it was the first of the 3 Brotherhood games. I thought the first one was great. The third in the chapter, not so much. I enjoyed the second one as well, but for me, Brotherhood, the first one, was top of the food chain. The fourth one with the pirate was really good as well.
Love it. Black Flag. That's my
Black
favorite
Flag
in the series.
was phenomenal.
Yeah.
But for me, Odyssey is by leaps and bounds one of my favorite in the series. And
okay, I got to get to it.
Yeah, it's just so good. Graphically, it's stunning. It is absolutely stunning to watch. But
yeah,
listen, folks, we're going to get into while we wait for Boxenberger to get here, who's stuck in a work meeting. He'll be here momentarily. I definitely want to get into the first topic, and the first topic's a small one, but it's one I really want to gauge the community and get your opinion on what you thought, what people think about a handheld. Now, it was put out there by Jez Corden that if you were interested in the Logitech G, which is the cloud-based handheld, that you should potentially hold off. So this is what Jez Corden had to say, and of course, as he he makes opinions, he doesn't shoot from the hip. He usually is incredibly well educated, and even though he has his opinions, when he makes statements like this, you want to sit back and take notice. At least I do anyway. And Jez said simply this: if you're interested in buying a Logitech G-Cloud, don't. There's something better on the way. Now, this led to a lot of speculation, and immediately most people equated that with Microsoft or Xbox having their own handheld, their own dedicated handheld, or their own branded handheld with another company. Some people suggested it might be with a Steam Deck that is, decked out for Xbox. I don't know where this is going to go, simply because, well, they made a big to-do, right, over teaming up with Logitech, right? They had it on their website. They had it the minute it was announced. You can go to Xbox.com and pre-order it. So it's unlikely that they would have their own units readily available or getting ready to launch after teaming up with Logitech. That doesn't make any business sense for me. So the question is, who out there could be making a handheld that's going to be as I would imagine as expensive, $300, but offer something where there is a hard drive, offer something where you can download games to said hard drive and play locally, which a lot of people, including myself, would like to do. I mean, for me, I don't travel very much, so I don't really need a handheld, but I will admit that it wouldn't be bad having one, especially if you can download your favorite game that you have through Game Pass or that you actually own onto the hard drive so you can play said game wherever you are. As opposed to, well, I can't get service, and now that this $300 box that I'm holding in my hand has become a giant paperweight. Daniel, let's go to you first on this. What did Jez Corden potentially mean by this? I mean, we have heard there are others in development. I mean, do you personally see a world where Microsoft is positioning the company and the brand and the platform for Xbox to be one of those brands that are known all over the place? You can play on your consoles, you can play on your computer, you can play on your tablet, you can play on your phone. Soon you're going to be able to play on your TVs by just attaching a controller wirelessly, pressing the app and going. And now they're getting into the realm where a handheld, potentially a dedicated handheld, partnered with someone that is going to be the Xbox handheld that most people have been asking for. Have you been asking for that?
It's not really. I'm just not the target audience for mobile gaming in any form of it. Like, I don't play on my phone. My Switch has stayed docked for the entire time that I've owned it, for the most part. It's just, I feel like the biggest use case for mobile gaming, especially things like the Steam Deck where you're playing like bigger games, is if you're traveling a lot. And I'm broke, so I don't, and if I do, I'm driving, so it's just, there's not a whole lot of time that I would choose to use, a mobile device to play a game. Because if I'm at home, I'm not going to be like sitting in my bed playing on my Switch in tablet mode. I'm going to sit in front of my TV. Right.
And that makes sense.
Right. But like, that being said, if they do choose to make their own handheld device, I think that would be really smart. Whether they make it themselves or they just partner with somebody else, as long as it does have the ability to download at least some games, I feel like that's really the sticker. Although, to be fair, the markets that it's going to be biggest in are in, Asia. It's going to be Japan and China and Korea, and their internet infrastructure is phenomenal. So they probably don't have to worry about it as much as like I do over here in middle of nowhere, Texas. So maybe it's a problem that solves itself. I think if they end up partnering with somebody for a handheld, combining that with this streaming device that we're going to talk about later, I cannot imagine a world in which there is not just a huge explosion of new people playing Xbox, especially over in the Asian areas.
You know what? I want you to elaborate on that for a hot second, because I don't really think. See, one of the things that I've noticed, running a channel and just being in the gaming business for over 40 years is gamers. And this is not a dig on anybody. I blame myself for this. Sometimes we're a little bit small-sighted. We see our gaming space through a small keyhole. We look and we say, yeah, I'm comfortable with everything being where it is. And sometimes we don't look at the bigger picture. Now, obviously, when you make content for a living, or you have channels that you're trying to support with proper and good, information and opinions, one of the things that gets left out of the conversation more times than not, Daniel, is the fact that the Asian market has been a failure for Xbox for decades. Obviously going all the way back to the first Xbox, we know how they did, but that's not the case now. Last week they sold 18,000 Xbox consoles, Series X and S. That's a lot. Now that may not be Switch numbers, hell, that may not even be PlayStation numbers, but they are doing something in a region that notoriously they have failed. And this is a device that we know, first of all, handheld gaming in regions like Japan and other Asian markets is their bread and butter. mobile is huge there. Okay. Now, one of the things that most people have forgotten about E3 this year was the announcement that the company that makes League of Legends, with all of that characters and all of those games, well, those are going to be launching this fall into Xbox Game Pass. And you say to yourself, well, boom, I don't play those kind of games. And I hear you, because neither do I. But that deal was not made for us. That deal was made for a region that is supportive of those types of games. And what's interesting is that when that launches, Daniel, we have there's going to be an opportunity where Microsoft is going to be launching their friends and family plan, which I don't think people have really taken a grasp at. It is a big, big deal when you can have 5 people on one account paying $5 each, playing as many games as you can. Is all of this the big master plan from Phil Spencer that no one is really paying attention to?
I mean, I think so. I don't know if it's like a master plan. I think it's more just like he wants to cover all of his bases, right? Because when you, like you said, you look at the Japanese market, which is one of the biggest markets for gaming, and it's like Xbox just isn't there, right? We've seen them stepping it up lately, especially with the Series S. We've seen them selling better than ever, but like you said, it's nowhere near the numbers that the Switch is doing. And the reason that the Switch is selling so well there is a combination of, well, it has the Japanese games that they're looking to play there, and it has that, ability to carry it with you and take it on public transportation and all that thing, right? That sort of thing just works for them, right? They prefer things that are smaller, things that are convenient, and things that they can play wherever they go, right? So I think that this is it's a really smart decision for them, especially like you said, when they start getting things like that Riot deal going, right? Or when they start getting like these Persona games, right? I see it as being this sort of snowball effect, right? Where the more Japanese developers that they can bring onto the platform and who can see success there, it's going to be this word of mouth thing where they're like, you know what? Like, we were ignoring Xbox for I think literally 20 years at this point. But hey, if you put your games on there, it's not going to sell as well as it does on Switch or on PlayStation, but it's the easiest one to port to by all accounts. And you're going to make another 10% profit or another 15% profit. It's not going to be gangbusters at first, but the bigger that number gets, the more adoption that they see in these marketplaces, the more likely it's going to be that other developers are just going to, without even having to be asked, like completely unprompted, want to put their games on Xbox. And so it's a tough climb, but I think once they hit a certain point, it's gonna ease up. And I think that this is how they do it.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that I find most interested of Phil Spencer's behavior as head of Microsoft Gaming is a lot of the things that he personally talked about were always in small snippets. You know what I'm saying? When he first got the job, before he was promoted to his big position now, he made a lot of big promises, right? He talked about fixing the power situation with Xbox, fixing the first party situation with Xbox, making Xbox more affordable for gamers across across the entire planet. When Game Pass launched in summer of 2017, and he has answered every one of those calls. And on top of that, we have all of these big moves. It's the Riot Games thing is not really in the focus right now because it's not here. Mm-hmm. But I can assure you that when someone who is a mobile player turns around and looks at Game Pass and says, wait a second, it's going to cost me over $800 to get every character in one game. All I have to do is become a Game Pass subscriber, and I get all of those characters for the price of download. I don't honestly think people realize how big of a deal this is going to be. And coming on the heels of a potential team up with someone else that's going to bring something to the market that is going to incorporate Xbox Game Pass, cloud gaming, having a potentially an onboard hard drive that allows for you to save games, download games directly to it, something that the Logitech device doesn't offer. Now, and again, there's me again. I don't think $300 is egregious, but then talking to people like Kay Asante, who's like a tech guy who has a Steam Deck, is like, yeah, 300. I don't know, because of the fact you can't save games directly. It's just a streaming box, and he actually said it. He said, "What if I don't have internet service? What happens then?" Well, it becomes a giant paperweight, and that's a big problem. A $300 paperweight, I say no, thank you. And infinite number, let's bring you in the conversation, because again, a lot of people who are not invested in Xbox, when they hear Phil Spencer talk about what his plans are for the future and what he's looking to do, people talk it up as just another corporate guy talking about the future of the brand, when he goes well beyond, and he's always like 12 steps ahead. Now, again, what we're talking about right now is the fact that Jez Corden put it out there that if anyone, and I was interested in the Logitech G-Cloud, which is releasing either this week or early next week, $300 device. It's been in Paris Lilly of Gamertag Radio, and of course of Kind of Funny Games, said that he's been playing, he's been using it, and he's enjoying it. So I mean, there are people out there that have it in their hands. For you personally, is a handheld the last piece of the puzzle for Xbox when you look at their map or their outlook for what the brand is going to be after the ABK deal?
I don't know if it's the last piece necessarily, because I look at more acquisitions, right? I think that obviously,
well, you're the greedy one of the panel.
I'm the greedy one, so I look at acquisitions and I'm like, we're going to need us a Japanese studio. I'm treating this like we're at the grocery store. All right, I'm going to get one of these and one of these.
You always go in for 2 things and leave with 10. It's my biggest problem.
Going for Activision, leave with Sega.
I'm the Walmart shopper of gamers. I want it all in my cart, even though I only came for one thing. But so I look at it like we're going to have to get more acquisitions, because it's what they're going to have to do to properly get things rolling right, as far as them being the quote unquote Netflix of gaming. I do see handheld devices. I know we've all clamored for it for a long time. We've all wanted it. The biggest issue, though, is it's literally what you just said, and it's what Danny said and what you pointed out, Kay Asante said. It's the fact that it's cloud-based, and I don't think that technology has caught up to that yet. And as great as cloud gaming has been, and I've tried it plenty of times. I have a Razer Kishi that I use with my Note 9, and while I have my Galaxy, S21 on the side, so I can talk whatever. But it is dope in that fashion if you have a good connection. But what if you're on a go and you don't have that connection? That's the problem. So, Boom, I think you're muted. I was going to say.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I'm typing. I don't remember.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, so it goes back to me what Danny pointed out. If it was a matter where you can, if it was local, that would make it the next step. That's the biggest issue that it has for me. Secondly, would be the price. If they have the price right, that could change a lot of things.
Absolutely.
And I saw John Wolf in the comments. He said exactly. I tweeted this way back when they showed the cloud G. And what's up, Kay? I see you jumping in here like that. On? We have acquired
he's just rolling through. I sent him the link in the hopes that he can come in and give us his 2 cents on this particular topic, because he is a tinkerer.
We have acquired Kay Asante, everybody.
I appreciate y'all for having me real quick. What's going on?
Not too much, but I was just going to say, I think that sweet price, that range they want to get, to me, if I was to actually invest in it, would be $150, something like that.
A lot of people saying that 150, like 200 would be the highest.
That would be the highest. That would be the highest I'd be willing to spend on it. So I think that's the biggest issue. If local, it not being local, only being cloud-based, when I don't think technology, we've caught up with that as far as widespread internet and connectivity, 5G and things of that nature. I think that's the biggest issue, because the new like 4K. It's like saying 4K. Oh, 5G.
Yeah,
5G
yeah.
is just not everywhere where it should be. That's the problem. Even my phone, I have the S21 Ultra 5G. I don't get 5G. You know, I'm going to brag about it. Don't get me wrong.
It'll
Oh,
say
I got a
5G at the
5G
top of the
phone.
phone.
Oh yeah, I'm going to brag about it. I'm like, oh, I got
I
the
love it.
S21 Ultra 5G, but I don't have 5G. I have 4G. If I'm
To
being
be
real.
fair, there, Umbro, you do have 5G, but if you ever actually used it, your phone would last like 5 minutes, and
Well,
then the battery would be dead.
I guess where I'm at though, I have never connected once with 5G.
Oh yeah, there are
Not
some
once.
places you can do it, and it's screaming speeds, and you can watch the speed go fast while your battery just drains in your hand. It's insane.
And that's another issue then. So we can get
Indeed.
5G, but will the battery last? So how would that work if you're trying to actually have that on the go and playing on the device? Oh, my mother joined in his game. Oh, Call of Duty. Oh, it's over. And it's gone. That won't work. So I don't know, man. I think it's just a kind of a catch-all phrase, the 5G. But the thing is that if it's not local, like Danny pointed out, that's a hindrance to a lot of people because most gamers, hardcore types at least, want something where they can actually play local. And that's why Steam Deck is doing so well. That's why the Nintendo Switch is doing so well, you know. So that's the biggest hurdle they have to get over. How do you get past that part of just having it be cloud?
Yeah, I think it's that thing, right, where like you can only have one of the three, right? It's the same problem that Stadia had, where it's like the technology works, at least for a lot of people, right? It's like you can have streaming, but you can't also okay, so like you can be a streaming only system, but you can't also be mobile because like if you're mobile and people are taking it on the train, it's like okay, but am I going to have a good connection the entire way to work or whatever, right? And you also can't be entirely streaming if you don't have content to back it up, right? Like the streaming is a really great additional thing, right? Like for xCloud, it's like I'm sure we've all done it at least to some extent, where it's like I really want to play this game. I don't necessarily want to download it. Like I've got some friends who are playing it right now. You know, but I don't want to install it, right? That's the use case for me where I'm going to use it, and for that it works perfectly. Like I've almost never run into problem with streaming in that way. But I know if I tried to like take a handheld to work and play it in the warehouse, like it's not gonna be the same experience.
You know what? Speaking of which, let's bring in Kay Asante. First of all, Kay Asante, welcome, brother. Thanks so much for stopping by.
Thank you so much. You know, just decided to jump in here real quick. I heard some tech talk. I'm like, all right, let me jump in.
You know what? Listen, Jez Corden stopped the presses on Friday, like he always does. He's notorious for it. And he put out there that apparently he knows or he's previewing something that he didn't mention specifically, but he said if you were interested in the Logitech device, you might want to wait because there is something better coming. Now, we do know that Razer is working on a handheld that will allow for downloads. That
5G
will allow
with Verizon.
Yes, yeah. Now that thing is something I'm not going to get because I don't have Verizon and I'm not changing my phone service to Verizon to get it. So that's where the 5G would come in. If there's a non 5G model that just allows you to download stuff or play using the cloud, then that may be something I would be into. But the question that I have for you, Kay, and we've talked about this before, but I know I want to have this conversation with the 300 plus people we have here. Is the last piece of the puzzle for Microsoft's potential market changing position a handheld?
So the answer there is all the above, right? Like that's what they've shown. They are about all the above, right? A while ago people were on the tip of, well, where is the platform? And now we know exactly where the platform is. It's whatever you use to get into Game Pass, right? And if for some of you that would be a Switch-like device, then go for it. If for others it's a controller connected to a TV, then go for it. That's just what they are about, right? Idea for them, it's all about how do you get to our content, and not everybody's going to be able to buy the box that we want, right? So we'll allow others to find other methods to get in. Gears 5, you're watching it on the screen right here. The story is amazing. It is a very unusually cinematic story. Most people didn't see it that way because by the time that Gears 5 had come out, you'd heard Gears over and over and over and over again. Oh, it's the gameplay. Oh, it's the chainsaws. Not many people got a chance to experience this level.
This story is probably the best in the series, right next to 3. I would say.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now, right now, you can type in Gears 5 into a Bing search and then hit play. And if you happen to have like $1 or whatever, you're playing that thing like right now. That is amazing, right?
Yeah,
and
I know you have like 200 likes on that. Lots of shares too, because that's something a lot of people didn't even know about. And
oddly
they added
enough,
it
I think
quietly.
I discovered that. Funny enough, it's amazing that thing exploded, and I just kind of happened to be searching for something. Everborn had said that he was playing was it Two Souls or Twin Souls, and he wanted me to check it out. I was like, all right, I'll check it out. And I Googled it, and I was like, wow, this is amazing, right? So it's really cool that that's definitely where they're going. Now, to your initial question about, who that partner would be, I have no idea, but I have some hope, because if we're in a world where we want a partner that, and you've been very right about, hey, they just signed the dotted line with the likes of Logitech and all them, they wouldn't like make their own thing immediately, and there's just so much more to it, R&D and all that. They don't want to do that, right? They want somebody else to come in, cloud focused and all that. And like you're saying, you want that sweet spot price where it's like, I can afford that even on my budget. You know what I'm saying? Like something light, but still can give you what you need. Honestly, if you think about it, the only company that can give you that, if you're partnering with Microsoft, is Samsung.
My God, yes.
The only
I like
company,
it.
because they subsidize, they are like quick with the R&D. Like they see something next week, they've made their own, and it's just as good, if not better. They are very good at that, right? So, I mean, I have no inside knowledge at all of this. I'm just putting it into universe, and I'm saying that is a device that I would buy and put my Steam Deck down for a little while if they made one.
Well, it's the one that makes the most sense there, Kay. And to your point, I want you to elaborate on this. It does make the most sense, because right now Microsoft is, when it comes to outside of gaming, Logitech, they does gaming stuff, and they have deals with Razer and controls from Razer, but what they don't have outside of TVs is anything from Samsung, and that would be a dark horse that a lot of people didn't see coming.
If you think about it, when Microsoft was having their AR/VR dreams, they were dipping their toes in the water on the PC side. They basically coast every one of their quote unquote partners. These are the people that work with them on Windows, work with them on Android, building apps and allowing the manufacturers and all of that. Microsoft works with a lot of these companies, right? Each of them had their own iteration of some kind of VR headset. The best one, Samsung's. And it ended up being like the cheapest one as well. Like the optics were beyond compare. It was a Samsung device, and it tied into Microsoft stuff and also Steam's VR stuff. They are always ready. They are the Ubisoft of the tech world. You got a new platform? We're here for it. Let's do it. We'll work with you. They are very much that way, because they really have their R&D like sewn down, right? The minute you heard that folding phones were a thing, they had one. It was better than everybody else's. That's how they are. So if there is a partner out there that we're thinking about, short of Microsoft going to Aya Neo, and for those who don't know, Aya Neo was Steam Deck before Steam Deck was Steam Deck. They've been around forever. They make amazing little handhelds, but they're like $1,000. Like that's what they are, right? So short of going there, I would say the one you want is Samsung, because then you get your Android stuff, then you get all that. Yes, it'll still be cloud, but you're getting your 5G radios, which, pro tip, if you want a real 5G, look for millimeter wave MM5. That's what you're looking for. A little logo says MM5. If you see MM5, that's real 5G. Anything else is that fuzzy marketing they like to throw at you. But yes, you can get millimeter wave 5G on their devices, because they already have that in Umbra and myself's Galaxy devices, right? And their devices are already known to be very good at local online play, offline play. You can Genshin Impact and all these other things. And of course, we're talking emulators and all that. It is a well-rounded device that could possibly be under $200. So that's where I'd want to see. Samsung is my guy. I'd want Samsung to take that strike. So that's it for me. Like, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to let you guys go, because I'm in the middle of a big meeting. But
Samsung master race.
In here.
Yeah.
Well, they do some good things, they do some bad things, but their hardware is second to none. So
without question.
Absolutely. So yes. And about the whole Jez Corden thing, might be hearing a bit more about that in the coming few days there, Mr. Boomstick. We'll talk some more.
Yes, yes. Well, Jez Corden
All
always
right.
keeping us up to date. But thanks for popping in. Give us your 2 cents, and we will
Indeed.
we will talk to you soon, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you, gentlemen. I'll see you guys soon.
All right, thank you again. So
See you later, brother.
Before we get into the meat and potatoes, as we wait for Boxenberger to show up, I got to thank a couple of people. A few super chats came in. We got a new channel member for the show as well. Eternal Shaddai drops a very generous $20 super chat and says, "Good afternoon, panel and chat. I would like to say great panel and show. Thank you for the compliments and, of course, the generosity. No wonder his name is Infinite Umbra, because he wants Microsoft to have infinite acquisitions. My take for handheld, which we lost. Wait, let's get him back in there.
He got shamed
There
out
he
of the
is.
podcast.
He was so taken aback that he
I
was.
talk with Phil and have him acquire somebody again. That's all it was.
He says, my take for handhelds, I give it to Nintendo. Look at the Vita. I mean, listen, you can't take away what Nintendo has done. Obviously, they have always been the master of handhelds with the 3DS and the Game Boy, going all the way back to when the Game Boy wasn't even color. And they have now taken the best of both worlds, both handheld and home console, and made a hybrid device that, well, has taken over the world by storm. They keep winning MPDs, and that's because Nintendo, even though the hardware is incredibly underpowered, they have great first-party stuff, and they kind of march to their own drums, and, you know, it is what it is. But we also had another super chat come in from a very generous friend of the program. Drawn TJ drops a $5 super chat and says, I say in 5 years, Microsoft buys Valve to put PC games on Xbox and your Steam library. Yeah, you know what? For a while, I thought that was going to be their next big one, simply because Gabe is looking to get out of the business. He's been doing this for a long, long time. He wants to retire. And I believe some of the rumors, and again, this is just rumors, folks, that he was going through some personal stuff that, you know, that was out there for, you know, in regards to his family. And he kind of held off maybe selling. And to be honest with you, if there were a company to that he would feel comfortable selling to, it would probably be Microsoft. You won't see him sell to Tencent. You won't see him sell to Apple or anyone like that. Microsoft makes the most sense because of the relationship that Gabe Newell has with Phil Spencer specifically. So it makes sense that would be a possibility. But again, that is certainly going to be breaking news if that ever does happen. Dragonheart Yobi drops a very generous $5 super chat and says, what he didn't say was he was in a meeting with UNSC and the Master Chief was right next to him. I like what you're doing. I like what you're putting down. And if you're not sure what we're talking about, all you have to do is go look at the commander from the Halo TV show and then see side by side Kay Asante, who's listening right now and is probably crying and laughing. They could be brothers, bro. It is a doppelganger situation. I would have real concern if they were in the same room, because someone is taking over someone's life, and you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. But
that's what the K in Kay Asante stands for. It's Captain Keys Asante.
Captain Keys Asante. I love it. I love how we're all slanderous. And if Everborn Saga's listening, he's probably laughing as well. Ladies and gentlemen, listen, we got almost 400 people here. I want to say a big thank you. This is still a small channel. This weekend, we passed 11,300. Now we're on the march to 400. And hopefully by year's end, something happens big that we get more people to subscribe to the channel. We're trying to hit 12K by the end of the year. I don't know if we're going to do it, because we're averaging about 150 new subs per month. If you're finding the channel for the first time, and I say we because Mrs. Boomstick and I are the ones that run this channel. We have officially become full-time streamers. We stream 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, all different panels, all different shows, all different topics. Nothing is regurgitated. Even when we talk about the same topic, it is approached from a different lens. So the conversation is always fresh. How do I do it? Well, I work 7 days a week, folks. The reality is I work 7 days a week on this channel. On the weekend, I do take a breather, but I'm doing thumbnails, I'm doing advertising, I'm writing shows. So if you are someone that's finding the channel for the first time and you appreciate the work that goes into this channel, I would ask that you consider subscribing. We had just passed, and remember, this channel is relatively new. First video ever, November 3rd, 2017. The 5th year anniversary is coming up. We have just surpassed 3.5 million views. And that's a lot of views for a channel this small. So if you're interested, consider subscribing. Hit the bell icon so you always know when Double Barrel Gaming is live. And of course, hit the like button. But let's get into the advertised big topic of the show. And that is, well, what is on Phil Spencer's shelf? Now, in a story that basically ran wild, I'm going to go to Windows Central, of course, one of my favorite places to get information. And this story was, of course, you can find at windowscentral.com. It was written by Sean Endicott, and it was published. No, I'm sorry. This was not. So I pulled up the wrong story, but in the original story from Sean Endicott, and this was published in May 31st of this year. They broke a story, and Jez Corden talked about this specifically, about this streaming box that a lot of people yesterday disappointed me, folks. I'm again, we don't shout people's, everyone's entitled to their opinion, so we don't throw anybody under any buses here. But a lot of people called this device and never was. Why do we need it? It's not necessary for the industry. And this is where I have to say, stop being so pig-headed, because it's not about you. There is a subset of the world that doesn't play games the way we play them, right? Like when we think of us as gamers, we're like the stuffy shirts guys, right? Like we have consoles, we have matching TVs that have the highest frame rate, and everyone's going out and buying LG this, and we're getting systems with base boxes, and we got the most expensive headphones, and we are putting all of our being into gaming because that's our hobby. Well, folks, we are the minority. Just want to let everybody know that you are 10% of the market, maybe 15 on a good day, maybe 17 at best. But the other, 80+% is the casuals, is the normies that don't really care about gaming. And the one thing that Microsoft has going for them at this particular time in the world is streaming services are the norm, right? They're all the rage. Everyone has at least 10. I mean, if I don't have to go down the list, but everyone has a Netflix account. Everyone has a Hulu account or a Disney Plus account or an Apple TV account, or I can get, the list goes on and on and on. I mean, I know that I have at least 13 subscriptions outside of cable. That I subscribe to Amazon because of Lord of the Rings. I subscribe to Disney Plus because of, I'm an MCU nerd. So for me, it makes sense. Now, when you consider where Game Pass was and where it's gone now tomorrow night, we are going to have a massive, massive coming out party for what Game Pass has been up to. Last year, $2.9 billion. I'm going to break that down with Primetime Gaming, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The guest is to be announced because we're kind of working out the guest details right now. But it's going to be a big deal because yesterday, you wouldn't believe it, shocking, on the internet, all of a sudden, people got degrees in capitalism. And they all said that, well, that's just money made, boom, that's just not profit. You know what? Good on you that if you know that. But we're going to break that down tomorrow. But getting back to this device, Phil Spencer did what, Phil Spencer normally does. And when he does something, whether it's coy or whether it's on purpose or whether it's by accident, which we've seen him do before, the internet stops in its tracks, ladies and gentlemen. And what happened? Well, one of the most fun things that have made its way to the to podcasting proper is the fact that what's on Phil Spencer's shelf. Now, Infinite Umbra, I'm going to go to you first on this because it was confirmed by many people within in the industry that yes, it in fact was a prototype of the upcoming streaming device, box, dongle, whatever you want to call it. As a matter of fact, Xbox proper immediately responded to Phil Spencer's picture of his shelf where he says, Volt Boy left the shelter and stopped by my office to celebrate the Fallout 25th anniversary. Congratulations to Fallout Bethesda teams on a major milestone for an iconic franchise. And Xbox immediately responded to, of course, their boss. And they say this: now, what did we say about putting old prototypes on your shelf, boss? And of course, it was made to be fun. But we had many people respond to this. And listen, Umbra, yesterday, we had a lot of people come out and say that this is a device that no one has asked for. I would absolutely beg to differ when you consider, well, every house probably has at least one TV. This is a device that if it comes out, and again, you said it before, price is key, right? So you said something about handheld, and you said now we have to talk about the streaming box, codename Keystone. Price is going to be key. Now, we know that there are other streaming boxes. Amazon has their own, Apple has one, Google has one, and Microsoft wants to get in on the home streaming capabilities. And I think that this is a product that will have big legs, especially when you consider their future plans, right? Game Pass for friends and family, it hasn't launched yet, and it's going to launch soon. And when it does, when you can tell a family or a group of friends that maybe not, maybe they're not diehard gamers. Maybe they're, you have one of the five that's a diehard gamer, and the rest are just casual gamers. They play Call of Duty, they play Madden, they play 2K. Occasionally, they'll play, a superhero game. But when you can have a device like this, launch it for $70, potentially to come with a controller, because the device itself is not going to be massive hardware. It's not going to be a $200 device. It's going to probably be about between $70 and $100. But you add a controller to this, and you give a 30-day free subscription to Xbox Game Pass. I think you're onto something here. And again, this is one of those pieces to the ultimate domination puzzle that Microsoft wants to have moving forward. And I think that when you consider the ABK deal, when you're going to be able to say after 2024, Call of Duty proper is in Xbox Game Pass day and date, this thing could take off like wildfire. What are your thoughts on Phil Spencer doing this in a way that Phil Spencer likes to do things? He did it in a very coy, non-explicitive way, and people ran with it because people didn't even care about the Volt Boy. People look well past it. They were like, "What the hell is this thing? Who gives a shit? I want to what's on his shelf."
They like,
and one
who?
of the things, yeah, exactly. And one of the things that was on his shelf was a plaque for Alan Wake. And that's another topic that, listen, for me, I loved Alan Wake 1. The remake was great. Maybe Alan Wake 2 is a marketing deal or something. Maybe we're going to get an implication of that. But let's talk about the streaming box. Is this a device that Xbox needs?
I think it is. And this is where it contrasts against the handheld, right? Because we already know that they're already going to have Samsung TVs with it built in. So it makes a ton of sense to have it where you can have a dongle, if you will. I hate using that word because it just sounds terrible. I got a dongle, but it makes sense to have this dongle that you can plug up to whatever TV set that allows it, and to be able to play those games through the cloud. That makes a ton of sense, actually, if it's because you're localizing it in a sense. So you can use that as a secondary device in a sense for you if you want to go. Like, imagine you just taking it instead of trying to take the S, which is already pretty small and easy to transport, but having that device where you can just say, I'm going to take this, plug this into my hotel's TV while I'm on a go or whatever, or to your car, screen or something like that for like people like our good brother Everborn, who has nice little Tesla or something like that, things of that nature. And it makes it so much easier, to be able to take that and transport it. Now, if the price, like you pointed out, if they have this thing launch at like 75, let's just say 100. Let's say 100, but you get a controller with it. Oh man, I don't think anybody is going to.
I think it flies off the shelf. Honestly, put your favorite game, put your favorite first-party game on there, and you put this little streaming box. This is one of those impulse buys, Umbra, that people are walking for groceries. They're in Walmart. They came for eggs, bacon, and some cheese, and they're coming out with a sweatshirt that has Xbox on it. Oh, and by the way, this new device was just popped over there. How much? $79. Boop, right in the wagon, and they don't even think twice.
Right. Hey, where's the bacon? See, what happened was I saw this cloud device. Take it back. No, but no, yeah, yeah, like the thing is, I think you're right. I think it'll fly off the shelf and it'll just make it for one for us, like who are more the hardcore. Obviously, we have our Series X's and such and S's, but this combined with the family plan. Imagine that now too, where you can have this on. We have so many TVs in the household, or if you want to have somebody else that jumps on your family plan, hey, you don't have to buy a Series S or X. Those might not be available either, or I might not have the money for that, but I can afford $75 to $100. Hell, I don't even have to have the controller come with it. If it's 50, 75, or 100, I can just give you one of my control. I got a ton of controllers. I take it as many Xbox fans do at this point. But here's a controller, pair that with it. Here's a Bluetooth controller, whatever, right? And I'm sure they're going to allow us to use any Bluetooth controller, probably too, just seeing how they've done in the past on other games and such, and on a PC. But yeah, you have this device. You could take it on anywhere on the go. It's easy to transport. It's affordable. And you have the family plan. You have Game Pass, like you said, maybe bundle that with 3 months or something like that. All of that spells win, win, win for me. Especially once we get all these games to land in Game Pass next year, I think it becomes undeniable at that point. And I'm expecting this to possibly launch, if not this holiday, then next year. And of course, like you said, it's an old prototype that he put up there, but Phil has now become like synonymous with his shelf. It's like, yeah. Well, if he posts a shelf, everybody is magnifying that joint every time. So we already know. So he knows it too. And the thing is sitting there front and center. It's not even hidden. It's just there. Of course. And we've all seen the images. If you go to Windows Central, like you pointed out, we've seen how it looks. So we know that's the old prototype. I'm wondering what the new one will look like eventually. But yeah, I don't think he hid it at all. I know they said it's an old prototype, but hey, he's the boss. He can do that. So yeah, I think couple it with the right price, couple it with the controller, let's say $100, let's say 75 to 100. Yeah, that thing is going to fly off the shelves without question.
Yeah, I don't think people understand what the power of an impulse buy is. Impulse buy is anything under $100, especially when you start talking about electronics. Packaging would be key. You know what I'm saying? Now, again, they can't put Call of Duty this year on it, and according to what we know about Sony holding the market rights until at least 2024 with no concessions or additions. Like for instance, Jim Ryan has already said what they offer, what Microsoft offered, specifically what Phil Spencer offered, was inadequate and not good enough for his gamers. So, at this point, if this deal goes through, and it's going to go through, folks, the question then becomes, do they just pull that offer back and like, okay, so in 2024 it's done. Call of Duty becomes ours. We got the marketing, and at that point, when you're able to put Call of Duty marketing on anything, especially a device like this, that at this point could be $50. Because if it comes out this year, comes out early next year, by the time the marketing rights are done in 2024, this device could be $50 with a controller. And at that point, I think you see Microsoft move into first place because they just have their games and their service everywhere. But you know what? Let's bring in Daniel McGee on this conversation. Yesterday, there were a lot of people that were excited for this device because some people have multiple TVs. I know I saw some people out there saying, well, what's the point of having the S if this is coming out? Now, I disagree with that 1,000% because, again, you have to pull yourself out of the market that Microsoft is targeting. I will buy this device just to try it out, put it in the bedroom. I have a Series X in the bedroom, but I would still buy this device to try it out to see if whether or not I needed to keep a second X in the house or a Series S in the house. But for you personally, looking at the bigger picture and pulling yourself out of the fanboy aspect of this, is this a device that not only shocked you that was on his shelf, but more importantly, does Microsoft need this for the normies of the world that they're trying to reach? Remember that Phil Spencer said and was clowned by many people in this community, which was ridiculous. He wants to hit 3 billion gamers. You can't hit 3 billion gamers by simply digging your toes into the sand and saying that, we're gonna do console the old way, and occasionally release something on PC the way that Sony is currently doing things.
Yeah. So, am I surprised that it was on the shelf? No. It's one of those things where I think that's how he sort of announced the Series S too, is he just had it on the back of one of his shelves.
It was in the back for months. No one paid any attention to it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the car going by. I'm not surprised by it. Especially considering that, like, we've already seen this, right? We've had pictures of the old prototype leak. We've had, people have known about this streaming device for a long time. And it's not surprising to me that he would just use this as a way to sort of like soft confirm that it exists. Of course, then the Xbox Twitter account was basically like, hey, this is a real thing. So not so soft anymore, I guess. So no, I'm not surprised at all. In terms of, do they need it? I think that's sort of a double-edged sword, because it's like, I think it'll be really successful. I don't necessarily think they need it. Like, I don't think Xbox would fail without it or anything like that. But I think that it is one of these things where, it's exactly like what you were saying, right? It's going to be for people who have multiple TVs, and it's like, maybe they want to have the proper console in their game room, but have the streaming one in their living room for if they just want to like show something off to somebody, or play it at a party or something, you know what I mean? Or it's going to be an even cheaper alternative for your kids if you can't afford to also buy a Series S, because it's probably going to be at least like $100 cheaper than that. I'm imagining with a controller, that this streaming box will probably be like in the ballpark of like $150, which I think is really good. You look at like the Roku sticks that have the proper like streaming box on them, and they're already like 130. So I think if you can get a really high quality streaming device with a controller for 150, I think that's a steal. It's that thing, right, where it's not necessarily something that's going to be a really popular use case for probably the people watching this show, but it's going to be huge for pretty much everybody else, right? This is for people who just want to get into the gaming ecosystem and they don't necessarily care about having the biggest and best thing. This is going to be for people who live in places like Asia, where they have an extremely powerful internet connection and they don't necessarily have a lot of room to put a huge console in. I mean, I think that's why we've seen that the Series S is doing so well over there. And this streaming box, assuming that they're still hitting a similarly sized form factor as that prototype, is like, it's the size of like 2 decks of cards next to each other. Like, it's very small, right? So I think that this will be a wildly successful device. It's going to be that thing where people are going to be fighting in Twitter spaces about whether or not we can count it as console sales, and it won't matter one way or the other because it's Game Pass numbers.
Yeah, I agree.
It
has been for years. User numbers are the new metric for Microsoft, and even Sony has switched over to that as well.
Yeah, and it's that's just the way of the future, right? It's the actual console sales numbers. It's that thing where like we look at like the 4090 that just got announced, the new graphics cards, right? And there's the people who are the kinds of people who would be watching a podcast like this, who want to have the biggest and best thing, right? So like, we're the kind of people who are going to upgrade to that thing. But the fact of the matter is, it's such a small percentage of the actual gaming marketplace who are going to even bother upgrading to that thing, to the point where most devs are not going to be concerned about whether or not they're using the full power of that 4090 for probably like 5 years. You know what I mean? So, but we want to be at the top of the list.
Well, absolutely. Yeah, and you know what? I sent out a bat signal because Boxenberger is hung up and he's doing something work related. So I reached out to Wandering Dutch, the best beard in the business, and the one that has the most stout opinions on the interwebs. First of all, Dutch, thanks so much for taking the time to be here. We are halfway through the show, so you're not going to be here long, but I do want to see and get your opinion. And I don't want to broadside you with this, but we're talking about Phil Spencer's shelf. Obviously, yes. It was a story that you guys are going to be covering on Wednesday's show, I would imagine, potentially even on Boxenberger's show on Thursday afternoon. But I want to get your opinion on this, because one of the things that I love about not only knowing you and calling you my brother is that you're on Primetime Gaming each and every Wednesday evening. And one of the things that I love about your personality is that you are not afraid to call people out for their BS. And yesterday, what we saw was a lot of BS. Again, we don't name names on this program, because what the last thing that Boom wants to do is to have anyone bullied because of an opinion. You're entitled to your opinion. As a matter of fact, speaking of which, shout out to Paris Lilly. Yes. Of not only the Gamer Tag Radio with Danny Pena, but of course he's a part of Kind of Funny Games. He's going through it right now, to the point where some of the things that were said to him by another community member were frightening. As a police officer, and I know that he may or may not listen to this show, I can assure you that what was done and what was said to you and some of the very, very harsh, racist commentary, it would be considered a felony. So I would say that if you want to take this seriously, and Twitter doesn't do anything about it, because Twitter seems to be dragging their heels with this, according to Paris, reach out to local law enforcement and find out if this could be taken to a federal level, because threats over internet is a crime, folks. I'm here to tell you, as former law enforcement who has dealt with this specifically in the bullying aspect, because I worked as a youth officer for many, many of my years as a police officer, I can assure you that when you say some of the things that were said to Paris Lilly, it would be considered a felony. I can't give you the actual crime because I'd have to look into the penal law. And I know things have changed since I retired 8 years ago, but I can assure you that it is a felony. And what was said to Paris, and I'm glad that he shared it. I'm glad he put it out there. He put out there who said it, and I hope the community responded in kind, and I hope someone from Twitter and someone from law enforcement proper could help, because it was disgusting. But
yeah, I saw that tweet, by the way. It was
it's disturbing. It is awful. No one deserves that. Paris is a good dude. Is he not afraid, like many of us, to give his opinion? He's not afraid at all, and he does it and sometimes could be a cheeky kind of a way, but he's not a mean dude. Like, he's not an a-hole. I like Paris a lot, and I kind of threw out there, and he sent eye emojis to me. Yeah. The one wish that I currently have on the bucket list is to get on the Xbox Kind of Funny show with him, Gary Witter, and Snowback Mike. Yeah, that's it, bro. Yeah. That's the mecca. If I can get there, maybe we can turn this into 20,000 subscribers.
Absolutely. I want to brag a little bit. I got both of those brothers following me on Twitter. Just want to throw it out there.
I'm going to put it out to the Eververse that maybe I get on Kind of Funny Xbox show. But again, let's reel this back in. Dutch, one of the things that seemed to be an issue for this community is when Microsoft makes announcements that get gamers happy. It gets us excited about the brand. Apparently, only Sony's allowed to do that, and there are several people in this community that plays both sides of the coin. Some of it is monetary, some of it is just clickbaitery, if you will. But some of the things I saw yesterday were kind of shitty, to be honest with you. This is a celebratory, fun, where's Waldo kind of a thing with Phil Spencer and his shelf, right? It's supposed to be coy, it's supposed to be fun, and he does it on purpose, and I love that about him, because Jim Ryan doesn't do this.
You know what the funny thing was as well the other day, Boom? Herman Hulst had an interview as well, very similar to Phil Spencer, and he displayed his shelf in the background, and I had
there was nothing on there, but yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I did see some people say he did display a shelf, but there was nothing on there, which is unfortunate. But yeah, and that's an interview that no one talks about, because quite frankly, it was very boring. Nothing new that we knew. Day and date for gas games, big deal. If you want to make gas games work, that makes sense. A year between console and PC launches, which I think is dumb.
I think the biggest one out of that interview specifically was how long they're going to continue to do cross generation.
Yeah, for years. They actually said years. So if you remember, people from Sony, they clowned on Microsoft for not leaving their people behind. But again, it's one of those things. But specifically,
We
to
believe
talk
in
about,
generations, Oi.
yeah, that's right. They actually believe in generations. And listen, don't you go into your Jim Ryan stuff, because the last time I couldn't breathe after your last escapade with your accent. It was too good, too well done. But Dutch, look, this streaming box we knew existed. We knew it has existed for quite some time. It's not a surprise that there is a box, because Microsoft told us that there is one, and the original design has been redesigned. Now, the original design, the prototype, is on Phil Spencer's shelf, but again, specifically done on purpose to generate a conversation, to get people excited. Some people even suggested that this was an indication that this thing could be coming out sooner than later. So why put it on there? But that's not the conversation I want to only have. The conversation is many people, the very detractors of the brand, felt that this is a never was type of device. And I saw it. People kept saying, "Who asked for this?" Well, not hardcore gamers, but that's not the target of this. We got people got to realize it's not all about you. There is a vast universe out there of gamers that buy only one game a year, that play only on their phone. And when you have, like I was saying with Umber and Daniel McGee, a device that's under $100, that comes with a controller, that literally turns your TV, that doesn't have the app, because not everyone has a 2022 Samsung TV, turns your said current TV or wherever you are into an Xbox. I think Microsoft is onto something. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, well, absolutely. The one thing that you kind of take away from it as well is that it's, as you mentioned, it's also the price. It's this streaming box, unlike your mobile phone, for xCloud, for instance, will have the capabilities to connect an Ethernet to it, so the connection will actually be a lot more stable. So when it comes to gaming on xCloud via this device, it will be kind of the preferred way to do an xCloud in the home, should we say, outside of playing on PC, because right now the PC version of xCloud is actually the best version of xCloud. But if you've got an Ethernet cable connected to this only streaming device that is under $100, if that is the case, I think it probably will be, it's phenomenal. Another thing I noticed from even that prototype on the shelf, which I don't know if people picked up on, was the fact that it did actually have USB connection on there. Now, that would mean that there is no wireless latency or Bluetooth latency between the controllers either, which again affects the capabilities of a streaming device. If you're able to connect that device and have a wired connection between it to mitigate kind of controller latency even further, that's a massive bonus. I think that was the biggest thing I took away from the design, other than the fact that it looked like an even smaller Series S, was the fact that there is that awesome USB port in the front, which allows you to connect any of your controllers without latency. So there's a couple of awesome things to come from that, and they've mentioned they've been working on it for a while. Personally, I quite liked the design that they went for there, which was essentially just a mini. I mean, if you can get any smaller, a mini Series S. And if that has Ethernet cable in the back of it or Ethernet port in the back of it, and that connects directly to any TV, it's easily portable as well. So you can take it anywhere. I would imagine it's got Wi-Fi built into it naturally, and Wi-Fi 6 capabilities would mean that, again, you'll be able to hotspot it from your phone if you're abroad, or use the hotel connection, etc., to do it. So instead of bringing a Series S away with you, or bringing a Series X away with you, you'll be able to just take this portable device on holiday instead. I think the added benefit may be if they're able to access, or at least bring in, remote play onto this streaming device as well, allowing you, of course, to connect to your home Xbox when abroad, or home Xbox whenever you're not in the property or traveling around, etc. Which means, again, you won't have to take the Series S or X with you. You're able to connect anyway to either just xCloud and play games, so you don't have to install them, or your own home device, away from home. I think it's awesome. It's more options, and that, at the end of the day, that's exactly what they set out to do: is provide more options to people, and easier ways for people to get into the next generation of gaming without spending fortunes. And when you're coming up to like And of course it won't be ready for the holiday period, but I mean, if it is, that's phenomenal. But if you're coming up to like holidays and things like that, and a device like that's available, and people are struggling to think of things to get as presents, or want a second device somewhere in the home but can't justify paying $250 to $500 depending on what one they were looking at, and this streaming device is available, and they're going to get an awesome connection via xCloud using an Ethernet, then of course they're going to jump into it. It's a no-brainer. I know I'll be picking one up anyway just to have around the house. And of course, built into that device, you've also got your standard apps. You've still got your Netflix, you've still got your YouTubes, you've still got your Disney Plus. So it'll be used for everything.
And it's funny you say that, because I do want to add to that what you're talking about, because friend of the show and friend of the community who constantly is out there rubbing elbows with everyone, Tom Warren of The Verge, put out an article where not only did he confirm that this is the prototype, and he confirmed that is 100% the original prototype, which is currently being reworked. And he said that in his article, which I have in front of me. He also said something incredibly interesting to exactly your point. This is not just going to be, hey, there's one app on this thing, play Xbox and go. Every app that you can find on your current TV, like your Netflix, like your Hulu, like your Disney Plus, like your Paramount, you name it, here, there, and everywhere, these apps are going to be a part of this device. And I think that is the selling point outside of now. And again, this is a very broad picture we're looking at. See, the difference between Sony proper currently is and I've said this before, Jim Ryan and SIE are looking through a keyhole. That's why their business is failing. That's why they are petrified that Call of Duty is going to become Xbox first party, that Activision Blizzard games will eventually be exclusive to the Xbox. And this is where the broad picture comes in. This is the vision of Phil Spencer. Okay, consoles, I'm always going to be a console dude. Like, I don't care how great the connection is. I'm going to have a box underneath my TV, regardless of whatever it's called. If it's $500, I'm buying it. If $600, I'm buying it. I'm not a PC guy. I'm a console straight up dude. Give me the box underneath the TV and I'm good. Now, I'll try everything else. I'll purchase everything else, but my main play is always going to be the box. But that's not the grand scheme of the picture that we're looking at. Right now, they are trying to get Xbox everywhere. And at some point, once this ABK deal is done, Dutch, there's going to be a potential where Xbox Game Pass is going to be 50, 75, 100 million subscribers, because the price of admission is low, but also the way you get into Xbox via a streaming box like this for $70 or $75 is going to be the difference maker. Folks, I'm here to tell you, and I've said this a gazillion times, and please, Dutch, tell me if I'm wrong. What won Sony the generation wasn't the hardcore. It was the normies. It was the casual audience that made up 80+% of the 116 million consoles sold. Because why? They were the cool place. They had Spider-Man. They had God of War. They had Horizon.
Bandicoot?
For a while they had Crash Bandicoot. That's absolutely correct. So when you see the tables turn and Xbox is now in charge of Crash Bandicoot and in charge of Call of Duty, plus all of their first party stuff, it's going to be a hard world to imagine that Sony continues to be number one in the market. I've been saying this for a while. I think that after this deal, you give it a couple of months, you give it a year, give it 12 months, give it 18 months, Sony drops to number 3. But
the thing that Sony need to do is just stick to their strengths, and the problem that they're trying to do is essentially they're just trying to combat every angle. Now, obviously they're going to need some form of streaming service to combat Game Pass.
Yep.
That is something they'll have to figure out over time, but they need to focus on their strengths. They've got so many unbelievably talented studios under their wings, and they're complaining about other studios that don't belong to them going elsewhere when they've got the capabilities in-house to combat pretty much every angle. They have IPs in their backlog that they could make use of that they refuse to, a lot of IPs, and I think and many Sony fans will agree with that. There's a lot of dormant IPs that they've just left there rotting. Resistance, Fall of Man, and Killzone to kind of soak on. Another one, huge. You've got 3 major first-person shooters, and they're doing nothing with them. And then they're complaining about a first-person shooter going from potentially exclusive. It's like, well, you've got 3 of your own major IPs that you could very well do something with. You now have one of the best first-person shooter development teams in the world as one of your first-party studios in Bungie. You're telling me you can't do something with any of those IPs? So
They can, Dutch. The thing
they
is,
can.
they don't want to because they've already been treated to this fancy life with these AAA games they put out there. Boom! I just laughed. It stopped me a lot from laughing at the screen where you just made this enemy fly off like that. Anyway,
that was funny. I don't know how that happened, but he went flying.
He caught me by surprise. I was gonna say, like, they're so used to, that's why they keep putting out these remasters the way they do, because they know that that's a guaranteed hit that's a guaranteed sale for them. So that's why I'm sorry.
I was going to say on that perspective, it's people keep saying, "Oh, Microsoft are buying X, Y, and Z," and yes, they are buying X, Y, and Z. And the reason they're buying X, Y, and Z is because they were that low on segments that they didn't have the talent to do. So we had a racer, we had a shooter. Did we have any other studios to do anything else? Absolutely not. We had Rare. Rare are eventually making the games that they want to make in Sea of Thieves and in Everwild.
Mm-hmm.
We have Playground Games now doing Fable, but of course they would only ever racers. But before that, we didn't have any other angles. We didn't have adventure. We didn't have open world. We didn't have RPG. Really,
look at Obsidian. We got Grounded. You got Avowed. You have Outer Worlds 2 coming from them.
So
and you got Pentiment.
Essentially, Xbox Xbox and Microsoft had to invest in studios because they had gaps left, right, and center that they couldn't do anything with.
Yep.
Sony have studios already in house and ones that they've invested in since early 2000s, like 2001, etc. That are able to fill in pretty much every gap, and of course, Bungie being another one that fills in another gap. But they've had the Japanese studios working on awesome fighting games. They've had the Dark Souls studios working on exclusive titles for them for years. They've had fighting games on their platform exclusive to them for a long time. It's action adventure games, third person action adventures specifically are absolutely major for them. Then they're getting into these huge open world RPGs that we've seen in the likes of Days Gone and Horizon Forbidden West. So
I think they're a bit of a, for lack of a better word, a slave to their own machinations. Because the thing is,
I agree. That's a great analogy, dude. Honestly, very well said.
Because they banked on, let's just make this AAA whatever game, right? And that's what they feast on. That's it. So now, because of that, a lot of the creativity that we would expect from them with their head during the PS3 era, you don't see that anymore. And a lot of their fans have complained about it. I've been in spaces where they've complained.
Weirdness, as Mr. Badbit would say. Yes, great point.
You don't have that anymore. And it's because they know that their bread and butter now are in those AAA, Last of Us and Uncharted. So they feel like, okay, why should we go and experiment and have these teams make up these, creative games or what do they call it? Their passion project. When instead we can have them make this AAA game that's going to give us back our profits. So that's the thing I think is hurt them too. And now they're playing a bit of catch up because now where they were already there with streaming and such, they let that die with the Gaikai situation. And now they're using Microsoft. So
agree.
Yeah. And this is one time where Microsoft was not so far ahead of the game as they usually are, that it worked in their benefit.
Well, that's the thing. Sony used to, as you mentioned, be the one that takes risks and has all of these really wacky IPs left, right, and center. I remember a game that a lot of people probably won't remember called Silent Bomber. And I really enjoyed that game. But you don't see them doing games like that anymore. You don't see them just taking risks and making.
That's because Dutch, they got
reliant.
I think that the reason why we don't see that weirdness is because they became complacent. They became so cut and paste. And again, I folks, I'm not dissing them. I love Sony's first person story-driven.
I don't even think it was ultimately complacent. I think the problem we have specifically is, of course, we know the complacency in PlayStation 3 wasn't down to games; it was down to the hardware.
Mhm.
Made it overly complex for no reason, and developers hated it, which is why they favored the 360 that generation. And on the opposite side, in PlayStation 4, that's when the complacency came in afterwards, because in PlayStation 4's generation, not only did Microsoft drop the ball big time, but PlayStation 4's generation had some of the most successful IPs ever.
Yeah.
Like, they just dropped hit after hit after hit. And because of that, it again, when it coming into this generation, they just expected to be able to pick up from last time without any more effort. They were just like, "Oh, we'll just do exactly what we did and we'll win." And it's not. You can't rely. You can't rest on your laurels, as
agree.
both of you have rightly said. You have to innovate. You have to keep trying new things and doing new things, because eventually, those IPs you've been relying on, and same goes for Xbox, been relying on Gears, been relying on Halo, been relying on Forza for years.
So
and
true.
You cannot do that. You have to bring something new, because eventually even the die-hard fans of those franchises will get sick of playing just another one, and another one, and another one, and another. They want something new. So
You're right.
it is.
100%. And I mean, that's why I've often said I wish that they will allow the Coalition or 343 to make something outside of those franchises. And we're getting that with the Coalition. They're making a
100%.
separate game finally outside of Gears before they
But the
make
one
Gears
thing that
6.
you mentioned as well, with specifically with Obsidian, is, and this is one thing where Xbox has excelled this year, where their first party AAA teams haven't done well.
Mhm.
What they have managed to do is team up with second party studios,
True.
or segments of their AAA studios to create these new experiences, like Grounded, that no one else is. Like, they're just taking risks and saying, okay, like a little team wants to make a game, okay, let them. Just go for it, see what happens.
It's a very different Microsoft compared to the Xbox we had in the Xbox One generation, where they would never have backed Obsidian doing something like that. So that's a good point too. And that's the thing. And I think that's what Sony has to kind of get back to. I miss the Jack and Dexters. I miss, like you pointed, I miss the what's the name of that game with David Jaffe made with the clown and all of that? What's the name of that?
Twisted Metal.
Twisted Metal.
Oh, dude, Twisted Metal Black is one of my favorite PlayStation games of all time.
Absolutely,
I freaking loved Twisted Metal Black. So freaking good. It was like a soft reboot of what we all knew and loved. It was amazing.
I miss those types of games. I miss where they actually, like you said, took risks and actually allowed some of those creative games. I know some people complained even about the, I think, was it Gravity?
Gravity Rush?
Gravity Rush.
Yeah.
And that didn't see, that didn't get greenlit for another sequel, where people loved that and they thought that was Sony, allowing some of that creativity to flow through.
Be weird. Yeah.
Yep.
But they are letting it get a TV show or something like that, right?
Yes,
like it's getting a show, but they're like,
getting a show, but no game.
Also getting a TV show, but
can't wait for the Days Gone show.
Second game.
That's interesting.
The Days Gone show has a. I mean, it's almost disgusting that the way that the Days Gone lead producer had to leave Sony, that he broke out and he had all those negatives to say, like, you'll never get that guy back again.
Yeah.
And they could have greenlit Days Gone. Listen, gorgeous
game. Was fine. It was actually loved. It was loved by the fans.
By many people.
The only reason
Indeed.
it didn't get greenlit, the only reason was down to Metacritic.
Yes,
that's silly.
Ridiculous.
And people try to write off Metacritic. Metacritic doesn't matter. It does matter.
It does.
It does.
Yeah,
Sony, absolutely.
absolutely. And I mean, I don't blame them for having a high meta understanding of what they want their games to have, this high rating quality, whatever. But the game wasn't it didn't score that terribly, and it sold well enough, so it should have.
It was like mid. The thing is that, and the main thing I would be looking at, especially from Microsoft's standpoint, isn't the critical review; it's the user review score. If that user review score is terrible and the critical review score high, it's the users you need to focus on. They're ultimately the ones that are purchasing the game. The critics aren't. You give the critics some free. So why are you worried about what the critics think when it's the users ultimately that are paying their money and will give you a more honest review? They've paid the money for that game. Like, ultimately, if it works, and what Metacritic really ultimately needs to do in the future anyway for user reviews is do the Steam route, where you can see how long they've played the game for and if they've played the game at all. But yeah, if that's essentially what Sony needs to do, in my opinion, anyway. And I think that would give developers more of a chance at future IPs than the way Sony are doing it now. Because I think Sony see essentially if it doesn't essentially hit 85 plus on Meta, it's dead in the water.
Which is a shame.
Yeah.
Which is definitely a shame. But listen, folks, we got one more topic we're going to get into. But before we do, we got to thank a new channel member. Galveston has become a new channel member. Thank you much. That's very kind of you, brother. Definitely appreciate that. We are closing in, folks. And I can't believe it. It's again, a small channel, nearly 130 channel members. That is freaking awesome. Mrs. BoomStick and I cannot thank you enough for the support. And with that said, before we get into the rest of the super chats and the last topic of the show, we are doing a bonus giveaway, folks, for Halloween, which is a Monday. That is going to be an Xbox lunch break special, Halloween edition. Mrs. Boom and I decided to give away another $200 worth of gift cards, 8 $25 gift cards for the total amount of $200. The first 4 are going to be raffled off to the between the 130 channel members that we have. The other 4 are going to be people that are in the panel. In the chat during the live stream. Hey, we got Boxenberger that popped in here. That's great. Boxenberger, welcome, brother. Thank you so much for being here. You came at the nick of the time because we're going to get into the Redfall conversation.
Sweet.
But yeah, thanks so much for being here. But yeah, so next the Monday of Halloween, we're doing a $200 giveaway, and the following Friday, folks, Mrs. Boom, because it's her birthday, November 1st, we are giving away $500 for Mrs. Boom's birthday bash, same as mine. $500. First half of the prizes go to channel members. If you're a channel member, you get obviously first crack at those. And again, $500 worth of giveaways for that particular show. As we get closer, we will break that down to let you know. But $700 in 2 weeks we're giving away. And all you got to do is be a channel member, be a channel subscriber, and be in the chat. And you got a shot at one of those prizes. But I do want to move. I do got to catch up on the super chats. There's been quite a few of them. So we'll say big thank you to that. Dragon Heart Yobi, good friend of the program, drops a very generous additional $5 super chat and says, eyes were a little bit on the industry after Phil made that 2 billion gamer statement. Eyebrows rose. Now everyone else outside of it wants in. You're absolutely correct with that. We also have Lakeith drops a very generous $5 super chat and says, funny, all eyes were on the third shelf, but the second shelf that is not a Series S, that is way too big, and the power button on it is on the wrong side. Yeah, I mean, he does things very, very funny, and I love that he gets out there and he does this, and he gives us something to talk about. Highlander 001 drops a $5 super chat and says, great panel and show. I would get this as a gift for friends and family if the price is low enough. The stream box and the family plan would be fire. Indeed, it would. And I think that's where you see numbers go through the roof. Arigato Sir drops a very generous $5 super chat and says that I believe this device will launch when 4K streaming is available on xCloud because they want 4K to be put on the box to sell to the consumers. And I think you're onto something with for sure. Sir X-Man drops a $2 super chat and says, this device goes after Google Chromecast. It absolutely does. There's no doubt about that. But folks, let's get into the conversation of Redfall. Now, it was done by accident, done by purpose, however you want to put it. We have word that, well, I mean, we know that Redfall is releasing next year. We've seen a lot of video of it. We've seen a lot of gameplay of it. Game looks fire. Game is going to be great for single and multiplayer. I think that this game is going to live on for the ages in multiplayer. This is a game you're going to hang out with your buddies and get down and play. And it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. But that's not just the topic we're going to talk about. It's not Redfall specifically that we're talking about. It's the information that came out where they're targeting a late March release in 2023. Now, this came the way, and it was cited by the journalist of Okami Games. And the same anonymous source also reported that the pre-ordering of the deluxe edition will grant 1 week early access to Redfall, among other bonuses. But you see, the question, and I'll start first with Boxenberger, who's here, is the importance of what is the first of the 4 games that we know coming out for Xbox first party in 2023. Now, we know, obviously, that there are some marketing deals, there are some console exclusive second and third party deals, but I think everyone that is an Xbox fan is going to be looking towards their first party, which unfortunately came up short this year to give these 3 games that were delayed extra time. And of course, I'm talking about Motorsport, Starfield, and specifically Redfall. Boxenberger, my question to you, and this is, of course, to the chat, what is the importance of this being the first of the big games coming out for first party that it hits in 2023? Uh-oh, are you muted? Oh, you muted. There you go.
There we go. See, not only am I late now, I mess up the microphone. I'm so sorry for being late, by the way. I was held up by my managers.
That's right. Real life, brother. Don't sweat it.
13 hours of workday behind me, so I'm ready to talk gaming now. Listen, it's a fantastic question. The thing is, after this incredible try streak of what looks like now will be 15 to 16 months, if that end of March deal release happens, we have basically a 15 to 16 months try streak from Xbox first party games, not counting Pentiment here, obviously, but you know what I mean. Yeah, it kind of needs to hit hard. A mediocre game wouldn't do it. The narrative would be all over it that Xbox still can't deliver games, so they have to bring their A game. But I have no doubt that Redfall will be that game. It will be fantastic. It looks very far in development. Whenever we've seen it, and we've seen quite a lot of it so far, not just at E3, they have shown a lot of other gameplay clips and stuff, and it looks really, really good already. So now this game really got that extra time that it might need to get from an 85 to a 90. You know what I mean? That's exactly what they need. Xbox can't start 2023 with a mediocre game, but I have no doubt that Arcane will deliver. They they have been one of these studios that kind of always have these very special games. If you look at a Prey, if you look at a Dishonored, and even a Deathloop, and Deathloop wasn't my kind of game, but I'm still giving them a lot of credit for doing things differently. But sometimes it kind of felt like games were maybe a little rushed, a little polish here and there, and I feel that this is the exact same thing with Redfall than we have seen with Psychonauts 2, where Microsoft just came in. Hey, you have this real great foundation, but here's a little extra time, a little extra money, and we all know what happened. Psychonauts 2, they added the boss fights, they refined some of the story elements in the later game, and so on. And that's what they did. And I feel like we have a similar situation here, because whenever we've seen the game, it looked already like, hey, dude, let me play it. But there must be a reason why they said, hey, we need an extra year, and then we're gonna hit hard. And that's how Xbox needs to start the next year after such an incredible long time without releases. So yeah, the importance is there. Let's see if they will deliver. I still have the feeling that this won't be the first game to release. I'm not 100% sure, but I feel like Redfall might be the second, and that we will see either one of the smaller releases, like the real-time strategy game, blanking on the name.
Age of Empires?
Not Age of Empires, the other one that they announced during E3.
It was like Aura, History Untold, or something like that.
History Untold, exactly. Yeah, right. Either that or Minecraft Legends.
Maybe, yeah. That'd be a good start, because Minecraft Legends is going to be a beast, bro. It's going to be a beast.
Exactly. It might not be the beast for the hardcore gaming community. They are more looking like for Starfield and Redfall and Forza, but it still would be a juggernaut. So I feel like they will start that year with that. But from the big AAA blockbusters as we all want, I think Redfall is the obvious first to go. So yeah, it's gonna be awesome. But that's exactly what Xbox needs. They need quality games next year. They can't bring out a Starfield or a Redfall or a Forza, and it can just be mediocre. They kind of need to hit hard, but I have no doubt that they will. So yeah, I'm very positive for 23, honestly.
Nice. Now, real quick, we got breaking news from people in the chat. Nelson Rivera, shout out to him. Kia Walker, a good friend of mine. It was just announced, ladies and gentlemen, via Microsoft Connect. I guess it's an event that's going on, which I'm gonna read. We're not gonna get into it because I'm gonna talk about it tomorrow night as again another topic for primetime gaming. So tune in. But this is big. xCloud gaming, folks. Xbox Game Pass apparently is launching on another platform, and it has been confirmed by Satya Nadella that Xbox Cloud Gaming Beta is coming to MetaQuest Store, meaning their VR. So you'll be able to play your Game Pass games in VR. I don't know what the extent of them are. It's probably going to just be on a big screen. The fact that that is actually happening on MetaQuest 2 in the future is pretty bonkers when you think about, giving you another device to play Xbox Game Pass. They just continue to allow for everyone to be a part of the conversation, and I think that is where Microsoft and why Microsoft is going to take over the gaming space as we know it. But let's bring in Dutch on this particular topic regarding Redfall. Boxenberger doesn't think that's going to be the first game. He does make a lot of sense when he says that it could be, of course, the smaller title, which I say small only in development size, not worth, because anything Minecraft is gonna slap. But what is the importance of a game like Redfall, which is expected to be a AAA bomb for Xbox and launching early next year, being one of the first AAA games for Xbox game studios to launch?
Yeah, I think the importance is, as Boxenberger mentioned there, is huge. They haven't, this year has been the worst on record for Xbox.
Yeah, it sure has.
Anything. Yes, of course, as a backup, what they've done is provided as many games as possible into Game Pass, and that's a nice consolation. But they'll be judged on what they produced themselves as well. And then coming off the back of a year where they are the number one rated publisher in gaming, to not releasing a single game themselves the next year, shows kind of the rise and fall of what Xbox did. They had all of the momentum, and this year, from a first party perspective, lost that momentum entirely.
It's what we always say. Xbox's biggest weakness is consistency.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. And Redfall has to kickstart that consistency. Now, thankfully, again, through second-party partnerships, the tail end of this year isn't wasted. Yes, we got Deathloop eventually, but let's face it, that game's already been out. It's been out on PC and PlayStation for a while now, so we're not going to shout about that one like it's a brand new game, because it isn't, and they're not going to get off the hook that easily. But on another front, thankfully we have Plague Tale Requiem coming up. We have Scorn coming up.
Yes, this week, as a matter of Scorn, this week.
Yep.
Yeah.
We've got a good end to the year. We've still got High on Life. We've still got things. Obviously, we've got awesome additions to Game Pass from a second-party perspective, which is great. But from a first-party perspective, next year, Xbox need to hit it out the park immediately. Redfall is probably one of the first of the studio's releases of next year, or the publisher's releases next year. And it absolutely needs to hit it on all fronts. It needs to stand out from the crowd. It needs to impress on the gameplay front, graphically, from a story perspective, and replayability. Essentially, it just on all fronts, it does need to hit. And we have to stress the importance of this, of course, because it'll set the tone for the rest of the year as well for Xbox. If that knocks it out of the park, then the tone will be essentially okay. It's a good start. Now it needs to continue. And we know that they've still got Forza to release. They've got Starfield to release all next year. This is not including additional games that will be announcing to release next year as well. We could have some further news at the Game Awards about games that might be releasing next year. So, yeah, the importance is huge. I'm really excited for Redfall. Initially, I wasn't. It looked cool, but I wasn't quite sure on it until they showed gameplay of it. Of course, the caveat was that it was delayed until next year. But we saw gameplay, and the gameplay impressed. It looked really fun. I liked the fact that in the co-op elements, you weren't kind of restricted by, like most co-op games are, where if one person chooses a character, no one else can. On this, essentially, everyone can be the same character if you really want to. So they've got no restrictions on that front. But it's also a big kind of semi-open, open-ish world, a bit like a Left 4 Dead mixed with a Borderlands, with loads of abilities and a good story. So
Yeah.
it looks very intriguing. Put it that way. It's something different.
There's also a horror element that's seen in play for sure.
Absolutely. It's the one thing that we mentioned before, and we had obviously on the previous topic is bringing something new to the table. Whether in this occasion, of course, we usually get with zombie shooters and things like that, but vampires and everything that comes with there's not really. Of course, we had Vampire Masquerade and all of that in that particular franchise, but from this kind of gameplay style, we haven't had something like that before. And again, when you're talking about like a Borderlands mixed with a Left 4 Dead-esque scenario where you're in this kind of you've got different types of vampires going after you and with different abilities, and you've got to hunt them down and kill them all, and you've got robot companion, and it's something different. It's again taking risks. So it needs to hit it out the park, but it's a brand new IP. And one of many brand new IPs that are going to be coming to Xbox this generation. So I think the emphasis really on for Redfall to do well is primarily because it is a new IP. And when you introduce a new IP to the audience, you want it to hit it out the park because, of course, you want to have a potential new franchise going forward. You don't just want to release a game, it does well, and then just forget about it. The reason you create a game is because you've got a world in your mind that you want to kind of elaborate on. And if any designer will tell you about it, the initial story that they tell in their first game is just a story that can stretch out as far as the lore takes them, as far as their imagination goes on the story that they want to tell. So as long as that first game does well for Redfall, it could be a brand new franchise, but it has to hit it out the park. And for Xbox, it's exactly the same. They've rested on their laurels for far too long on the major staple IPs, as we mentioned previously. Again, your Halos, your Gears, your Forzas. What they need to do coming into this generation and going forward from next year onwards is try to find some more new figureheads. We potentially have that with Senua in Hellblade 2. We potentially have that figurehead there as long as that hits it out the park as well. But Redfall could be another figurehead moment there with some awesome characters. So hugely important. Boom.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. Let's bring in Umbra, Infinite Umbra, onto this conversation. But real quick, this was just put across my again. This is crazy. You want to think that Microsoft is the only one making acquisitions? Well, it was just announced by Wario64 18 minutes ago on Twitter, where he has confirmed that Meta has acquired Camouflage Gaming, Twisted Pixel, and Armature Studios. These studios were responsible for many games. Endeavor One came from Camouflage, who partnered with Sony Interactive and Marvel Entertainment, and they did Iron Man VR, which has been confirmed to be coming to MetaQuest 2. More acquisitions being made in the gaming space. And yes, Meta has acquired 3 studios, announced just minutes ago. But let's get back to Infinite Umbra. Infinite, what for you personally, what is the importance of Redfall specifically targeting first quarter 2023?
I think the significance of it is I think Dutch kind of covered it well. And we talked about this in a space recently where we were saying the thing for Microsoft, for them, what they have to prove is that they've made this turnaround with all their AAA, at least shown some semblance of turnaround with the AAA, where the quality is undeniable. And I think something like this takes away a bit of that stigma where a lot of our hooved brothers try to dismiss Game Pass as having fodder and things of that nature. So something like Redfall dropping and coming out rating well and being well received, I think it only speaks well to the Game Pass growing more and more people jumping in, enjoying it, joining into it. I was going to say too, much like Dutch, when I first saw Redfall, I wasn't blown away by it. I was like, and I guess it was because of the old Back for Blood thing and all that. It didn't really leave I guess a great taste in my mouth. I didn't dislike the game, but it just didn't wow me. So when I saw it, I wasn't impressed until the showcase, and then the showcase turned my whole mind around on that. So I think the game will be great because it's Arcane and they make great games. So I think for the future of Xbox Game Pass, as long as this and the games we have next year hit the way we are hoping they hit, and they're great games, I think it's going to jump that 2.9 billion we saw in Game Pass up to a good 5 billion maybe over time with the acquisition going through with ABK next year. So I think it has a lot of significance just based on the growth of Xbox, because if it's received terribly, obviously people are going to lose less incentive to actually stick around with the subscription service, especially after having somewhat of a rougher year this year and only having AA games.
Yeah. No,
absolutely. First party AA games, to be clear.
Right. Well, you know what? Next year is going to be the year where I think that we've heard this before, and a lot of people are tired of talking about it, but just based on the 3 games that we know are coming and potentially Hellblade 2 at the back end of the year, plus you look at all of their third party, second party console exclusives, Game Pass is going to really show its worth, and it's coming in a time where just the holiday before, which of course this is upcoming holiday, they're going to have a friends and family plan that offers 5 people on one plan for $5 a piece, and hardware that not only you can buy the most expensive, or you can get a $70 streaming box. It is going to be game over for the industry, and I think this is something that Microsoft has been striving for since the old OG Xbox, and they're finally going to have a chance to be out of third place. But before we close out today's show, let's get Daniel McGee's opinion on the importance of Redfall hitting in first quarter. For you, seeing, again, everyone had great points about this year being very, very light. People are waiting for the bangers. This is going to be a big one. And listen, Arcane, say what you want about them. Maybe their games aren't for you, but they do release great games. Every one of their games have been not only critically successful, but they've been monetarily successful as well. What are your thoughts on the importance of this game hitting first quarter of 2023?
I think as long as something hits first quarter of 2023, I think we should be fine. Like if Redfall gets pushed to second quarter or whatever, I don't think it's going to be game over. But I do think it's going to be an absolutely massive hit when it comes through. Arcane historically has performed really well in terms of, review scores and just, word of mouth. Like everyone who plays Arcane games seems to really like them. Right. They don't necessarily do super well in terms of sales numbers for whatever reason. But with Game Pass, that's not really so much a concern. So I think that this is going to really take off. I think once people sort of get in and start playing around with that, gun in one hand, powers in the other, classic Arcane formula, I think people are going to really fall in love. I would not be surprised at all if Redfall became, the next sort of big Game Pass game, and if it even became one of those games where it starts we start hearing about it being like bridged out into like the TV space, or like it gets a movie on Freeform or something, right? Because like, I mean, they already announced one for Grounded. I can't imagine that Redfall is going to be any smaller than that. You know what I mean? So I think that this is one of those franchises where, as long as it hits and it isn't just completely broken at launch, which is hopefully not going to be the case after this fairly lengthy delay, I think it has a lot of potential. And I think that it hits a space in the Xbox market that is sort of devoid at the moment, in that really fun like co-op multiplayer PvE experience, right? Because you can do, you know, player versus player in Halo and Gears and all that, but there's no official co-op in Halo at the moment. And so I feel like that's something that's sort of missing out of the catalog, and this will be the answer to it. I mean, hopefully we have co-op in Halo before this comes out, but you know, I'm not holding my breath at this point. And it's, you know, one of the things that I've seen people in the chat talking about is how well this sort of pairs with other games that are coming out that year, or 2023, right? Because it's this and it's Starfield, and it's just going to be this crazy lineup. And you know, I feel like it's sort of been slept on a little bit, just because it's a new IP, and so, you know, it doesn't get that same level of hype that other things tend to. You know, big sequels are always going to be more exciting, I think, for people than the new IP. But I think this has a lot of potential. One thing that I wanted to bring up from the previous topic, the streaming, the thing on the shelf, is I saw people in the chat wanting us to mention some of the other things that were on the shelf. There's that Alan Wake faceplate, and there's the Life is Strange, like, I think it's a vinyl or something. If those are also hints at like future acquisitions or even future partnerships, it just makes the catalog of Xbox that much more powerful, because like Remedy 100%. Is this extremely good sort of horror franchise. You know, Don't Nod over doing the Life is Strange, and of course Tell Me Why, which are both amazing. That serves itself to Game Pass so fantastically with that episodic format. I think Game Pass is the place in which an episodic game could really thrive. And then of course you've got the collector's edition Elder Scrolls Sword at the top. Does that mean that there's a FromSoft partnership? You know what I mean? Like, I think with all of these things, and the Activision Blizzard deal going through, and Redfall, and all these games that we know are coming out in 2023, I think, selfishly as a content creator, I think it's going to be an extremely exciting year. But even just as somebody who's going to be playing these games, I can't wait for this year to be over.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And I think you're onto something. I think 2023 is going to be a year, especially if you're an Xbox gamer, to really be wowed by the potential of what this service or the streaming service is going to offer. I just want to address something real quick before we get to the outros. R.L. Stein, I want to say thanks so much for being here. He says this: saying that it would be game over for the industry is exactly what would make this deal get blocked. And maybe that's me. I misrepresented what I meant. It's game over for Microsoft being in third place. The industry as a whole is going to change. It's going to change because of Microsoft. Microsoft is going to do things, and is currently doing things that is indeed changing the industry. And that's what competition is about. Sony, for 2 decades, has been the console market leader. Again, digest that for a second. For over 20 years in gaming, which is probably more years than people actually are alive in the chat right now that have been playing games, Sony has been the market leader. They're no longer going to be the market leader, but not because of just money. Microsoft isn't money hatting the industry. They're making investments to make the industry better. Sony has sat on their hands for too long, and they have gotten fat, and they have gotten complacent, and they're the exact kind of ruler or king that you read about in storybooks that take their subjects for granted. And the subjects I'm talking about is the fan base. And because of this complacency, and because new companies like Microsoft, who have been in the industry for a while and have sat at third place without saying much, have quietly done these investments that Sony can't do, number one, or want to do, number two. So is the industry in jeopardy? No, the industry is going to be making billions and billions of dollars. Sony is the one that's potentially in trouble, and not because of anything Microsoft has done. Follow the stock market, folks. They are down 49.6% in their stocks for SIE versus last year. Whose fault is that? Is that Microsoft's fault? No, but the announcement of ABK certainly made investors, their stock less valuable. And that's because Sony is sitting on their hands. They're not making any investments into the industry outside of locking down content away from you and me on their box. So if anyone's to blame for the lackluster market share that Sony is that currently is, the stock market is Sony. It's not anyone else. They are not investing in the industry. They're not investing in their own platform to make things different, to make it more affordable. And I'm not going to go on and on about why they continue to rake their players over the coals. But let's get to the outros. We're going to start with first our guest that jumped in. We had Kay Asante jump in earlier. Wandering Dutch, sell your brand, brother. Talk about where they can reach out to you on social media, but more importantly, subscribe to your YouTube channel and check out your show tomorrow.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Actually, I'm streaming in less than an hour, doing a Sea of Thieves stream.
Oh, nice. Well, there you go.
That's also changing a little bit, actually. Going forward, we'll be changing that into what's known as a playcast. So essentially, we'll be getting members of the Sea of Thieves community and hopefully in the future, Sea of Thieves developers on board to talk about the game as we play the game. So it's a podcast mixed with a play session. But yeah, that's later on this evening. And of course, every Wednesday, you can find us at the Midweek Mix-Up podcast. And every Sunday, the weekend edition as well. And of course, joining the awesome Boxing Burger when he does his outro, he'll inform you about his show. But and of course, tomorrow evening, primetime gaming. So I am everywhere these days.
Yes, and the gaming community is better for it, sir.
Thank you, brother. But yes, it's been again awesome to jump in. I saw the bat signal, so I thought I'd jump in before the show started and lend my opinions to this awesome show. But yeah, again, always awesome with Umbra and Boxy and yourself, and great to meet MCG as well. Nice to podcast with you, brother. And to the chat, as always, great stuff. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your days.
Yes, well, thank you so much for that. Definitely appreciate you being here. Daniel McGee, sell your brand, brother. You make great long and short content on your YouTube channel. Talk about that. Where can people subscribe? And more importantly, where can people reach out to you on social media?
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter at Daniel J. McG or on YouTube at just Daniel McG. That's Daniel MCG. I haven't put out a video in the last week because I'm working on a really big project. It's the most research and the most scripting and outlining I've done, I think, for any video I've ever done. So hopefully it pays off. But come on down. I think that's going to be really exciting for people. I should have it up next week.
Nice. So. Well, looking forward to it. Love the long content, especially when you do your research, and we know that you do. So thank you so much for that. Thank you for being here, Daniel. And everyone's information will be in the show notes where you can just simply click twice and subscribe and hit that bell icon and support everyone that not only supports this community, but supports Double Barrel Gaming. Infinite Umbra, sell your brand, brother. Talk about your Friday podcast, which is going to be very spicy. There's no doubt about it. And where can people reach out to you on social media?
Oi. You lot can find me on Twitter under Umbra Infinite or Infinite Umbra. Oh, wait.
Is that Jim Ryan?
That was Jim Ryan again. He snuck up on me.
God damn it, Jim Ryan.
He's trying to stop this. He's trying to stop this deal at any cost.
I've never seen Umbra and Jim Ryan in the same place at the same time. I'm starting to.
Pretty interesting.
I'm starting to get suspicious.
I have to agree there.
It was me all along. No, but you all can find me under Umbra Infinite or Infinite Umbra on Twitter. You'll find me either way. Of course, as Boom pointed out, you can find me on the Xbox Infinite podcast this Friday at 8:00 Eastern. I struggle to remember the guest that we had right now, but I last week forgot to mention we had Colt coming through. It was, I don't know what the hell happened, but we still managed to get like 500 people come through. That was pretty impressive.
Nice.
So that was good. I'm working on actually starting my own podcast right now. So I'm in the
Great,
works of
dude.
that.
Good stuff. We'll help you.
Yeah.
We'll help you promote that as soon as you get that done. Get working on that. That's
I
awesome.
appreciate it, brother. Yeah. So I got Risk. I have Jedi. I have a few other people kind of brainstorming with them, and I got like a logo made up and things of that nature. And I even got a guy who's going to, do the intro song for me and things like this. It's coming along. Yeah.
Nice.
So, but I want to thank everybody in the chat. Of course, you guys on the panel, and Boom, of course, you so graciously welcoming us in. And Dutch, thanks for joining us. And Box, thank you too, brother. And Danny, always, of course, bro. You and the chat, thank you all for just being here and supporting us and raising our spirits with such nice comments that you all say.
Yeah,
and your knowledge too.
Yeah, this is very knowledgeable and very, very welcoming chat, and we're very proud of that. And last and no way least, Boxenberger, sell your brand, brother. You got a show coming up at the end of the week with, of course, the Wandering Dutch. Where can people check that out, and more importantly, reach out to you on social media?
Yeah, first, apologies again for being so late, but at least I caught the last topic. So, yeah, it's always great to be on your show. Of course, with this amazing panel, Umbra, Danny, you guys are awesome. And Dutch, I podcast with you so much, I have no idea how many shows we are together. It's insane. Yeah. Boom, you said it on my channel, the Boxenberger channel. You can find it on YouTube and everywhere else. We have on Thursday our podcast, The World of Gaming, coming up this week with a special guest, Pong Soul. And I say special because he's been avoiding me for months now. Crazy.
I'd be insulted at this point. Yeah,
but we finally make it happen. You'll be on the show. It's gonna be awesome. And yeah, next week we're gonna have a very, very special episode on a Wednesday. But we're gonna announce why we are moving it to Wednesday. Actually, we will have just 2 shows next week: the special episode on Wednesday and regular on Thursday. But yeah, over the weekend we're gonna announce what is gonna happen on Wednesday next week, and it's gonna be super special. So
nice.
Yeah.
We're looking forward to that. That's right. Find Boxenberger at the same name on Twitter. Subscribe, follow him. You'll get all the information there. Real quick, Drawn TJ drops an additional $5 super chat and says, with the ABK, they can make Vigilante 8, which is a Twisted Metal clone. I'd imagine next year's holiday streaming box with family plan for $80. Yeah, and possibly, you never know. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here, for continuing to support Double Barrel Gaming. I want to say a big thank you to the over 400 people we had here. That is awesome. A big shout out to all the super chats that continue to come in and support Double Barrel Gaming with our way of giving back, and that's all the giveaways that Mrs. Boomstick and I fund. We do that through super chat, through channel membership, and of course, I'm going to close out the show with something that's important to me. Hopefully, one day it'll be important to you, and that's something that my dad taught me with kids, and he would say, "Craig, treat others how you want to be treated, and also it doesn't cost anything to be nice. You live by those rules, son. I can guarantee you're going to have an awesome day." So take care, everyone. We'll see you next week on the newest episode of the Xbox Factor Podcast. Wandering Dutch Box, no problem, no sweat about being here late. And of course, Daniel McGee, Infinite Umbra, thank you so much for being here. Gentlemen, I normally like to hang out and BS, but I gotta bounce. I gotta take this call from the hospital. My mom is okay, but I gotta take this. I will keep everybody updated. You guys, love you. Right, enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll talk soon.
Glad the mom's doing better, man.
Likewise.
Yeah.
Awesome stuff.